What you're hearing now is Orchestral Companion Strings from SONiVOX. And in this video, we're going to take an in-depth look. Alright, here we are in Pro Tools. We have Orchestral Companion Strings opened up. And of course, this works in other DAWs, but we're in Pro Tools here. So let's go ahead and take an in-depth look at this plugin. First off, the library that comes with Orchestral Companion Strings, it's about 9 gigs, a little bit over 9 gigs. So it's a pretty good size sample library. And you can set that over here with your gear icon, wherever you happen to install your content to. And you can always rebuild that database and change where you have it installed. Okay, and I already have a video showing how to, after you buy Orchestral Companion Strings, how to download, install, authorize, and how you can set where you want to put your samples at. All right, so let's go ahead and take an in-depth look at this plugin. It sounds, as you can tell there at the beginning, it sounds pretty good. So first we have a tune knob. Now tuning is, of course, tuning. Think of guitar tuning. So you're not going to hear a huge difference whenever I use this tune option. Let's go to a different sample here. So maybe we want to tune it down a little bit. Tune them up a bit. So we can use the tune knob to, of course, tune up our samples so we're in tune with other instruments that we may be playing with. You can double click any of these knobs that you change, by the way, and that will set them back to their defaults. We can also double click in a value and actually just type a value in. And then we have transpose. Hopefully you know what transpose already does. It's just going to, of course, transpose our Midi notes, not the actual Midi notes we have here, but what's going to be coming out of our plugin here. So if I just play here, we can transpose this up. Or down. All right, double click, put that back. Then we have a volume knob. Volume knob, you should know what that does. Of course, you can use automation with that as well. We have a pitch wheel and a mod wheel, which is a very basic sort of control that almost every sort of keyboard instrument is going to have. With the mod, we can sort of do a little bit of slight volume changes. So we have reverb, chorus, delay, and EQ. Each of these can be turned on and off individually with a switch. And we'll turn on our reverb. Of course, we can adjust our time, the mix, the overall width, and then the size, and then the HF time, or the high. Increase the time overall. Increase the mix. Reverberates out there, has a nice tail to that. Pull that size down, pull the width down, pull the HF time up there. Make it even larger. Make it really wide. Pull the mix up. If you get your mix way too high there, you're gonna, you have a possibility of distorting. Pull that high end down there. So some good controls there to really control the overall sort of depth of your strings there. Turn that off. We have a nice chorus. You're going to need chorus on strings, right? Let's pull the wet down a bit. Pull up our depth, rate, turn the volume up. Right? So without that reverb, it sort of just stops. Pull the wet up a little more. And there you can really start to hear it. Really starts to modulate there. Onto a delay. Turn that on. Turn it up a bit here. So if I wanted to delay the left a little more than the right, we could do that as well. Let's go to something else here. Hear that? The left versus the right. That's obviously an extreme example, and it's still delaying. I'm not even playing back, but we have the delay and the feedback, the wet up so loud. Turn that down. Still going on if I pull that wet back up. So obviously that's, like I said, kind of extreme. There we go. Just create a bit of width there. Not so much feedback. Turn that down. Something like that's, obviously better. And of course, we can double click in here and type in values and double click to put them to default settings. Turn it on and off. Each of these individually. Onto the EQ, just a nice basic EQ with our low cut, high cut, a mid gain, and the Q size of the the width size, and high gain there. So we'll check this out. Low cut, of course, cuts out the lows. High cut will cut the highs. This control is great for if you're doing like some pop mixes or something with some strings. You'll often hear sort of a high cut filter moving back and forth, or maybe a low cut filter. So our mid gain, this size, pull that up there. And of course we can automate all of these controls. Now in Pro Tools, we'll do that from that little button right there. Choose what you want to automate, throw it over here. Then we can, of course, automate that right here in an automation lane. It's going to be similar for other DAWs. So an envelope, if you don't know what envelopes are, I guess we'll describe those real quick here. So what our attack does is it's going to control, of course, the speed of that attack here. If we just have the attack come right on, then it's going to sound like that. The attack is pretty quick. Now with strings, of course, there's already a slight delay of the attack just because of the nature of strings, but we can accentuate that with our attack control here. So if I pull this way out, and also, by the way, you can come down here and move up and down to change these values, or side to side, just clicking with your mouse. And of course you can double click and type in values if you want, but I'll pull this attack way out. And now you'll hear how much slower that attack is. Right? How it fades in a little bit slower. Then we have a hold control. And what the hold is going to do is hold it at that, in this case, our attack position for whatever length that we want. And then we come to our decay time, pull the decay way out here. You can see that sort of represented here with our envelope, and the sustain level up and down. If I wanted to sustain low with a very fast decay, I'll pull the hold time down a bit. Just hold a note here. See how it comes on and it just drops off. Let me pull the hold time out a little bit longer there. And there it goes. And then that goes down to our sustain level with our decay shape right there. So if we want to decay that out, make the hold a little shorter. We want it to decay a little, with a little bit of time there, so it doesn't just drop off and go down to this level here of sustain. Now it's fading down to our sustain level. Right? And then of course you have your release time. Now there's already some sort of a release on these samples already, but you can pull that release time out. That's basically just how long it's sort of going to take to decay down to nothing. And of course you can shorten that up or lengthen it out. From there we have a filter envelope, which you're not really going to hear anything with. Let's go to, what do we have here? So we're not really hearing anything, right? But we have a filter section down here. So let's just put a low pass on this. Turn this control down. Choosing the frequency, the width, the Q. Of course, you can automate this here, which would be pretty cool. This 2-pole filter is pretty cool. I also like the peak too. Right, but now we have this filter envelope. Let's go and turn this control up. And this filter will be sort of, in a way, controlling the kind of filter we have down here. Hear that? So you hear this more on, say, a low pass. Pull the attack out a bit of the filter. If I turn this control down, so you have lots of filters to choose from to really sort of shape your sound. Turn that to none, and we're pretty much done with the filter envelope. Let's move on to the Lfo Mods. So we have our amplitude mod here. Pull the depth up, and the speed. Almost turns into a sort of a pulsing pad sound, which could be great for dance music or all kinds of different music. Combine that with low pass here and our filter envelope. All kinds of cool stuff you can do. Now, in LFO, you're not really hearing an LFO. LFO is a low frequency oscillator. It's not contributing to the sound. In this case, it's modulating, the amplitude, which you can sort of think of as volume. Okay. So then here's a filter mod that we can use as well. And down. May actually turn the filter off for now. Go to the filter LFO. Go to the filter envelope. Hear the difference there? Let's go to a different sampler. You'll hear the difference there, whether or not I have this control up or not. Now that attack is longer for the filter there. All right, so that's your filter mod, and combine it with our envelope and of course the actual filter. And from there we have, let's turn this down, take our filter off there, turn that down. So we have an LFO that can control pitch as well. So you can do all kinds of, pretty cool effects with that as well. All right, on to our articulations. So what we have here: sustain, staccato, spiccato, pizzicato, and tremolo or tremolo, however you prefer to say that there. We actually have further articulations that we can load up. We have espressivo there and some other ones down here as well. But let's go through sustain, staccato, spiccato, and these are the ones that we have direct control over. Turn our pitch down. There, our pitch LFO. Make sure that's off. Right, that's sustain. Go to staccato. So our staccato is of course more separate than our sustain. It's like a really quick hit there. Now our spiccato is sort of like staccato, except that bow is really hitting the strings and almost bouncing off. It's you can almost think of it as sort of a combination between staccato and pizzicato. Hear that? It's got almost a plucky sound to it, but still that nice bowed sound. We go to pizzicato here, it's more of a plucked sound. Right, I always think of pizzicato. Whenever I hear that sound, it always reminds me of like the old Looney Tune cartoons, right? Right, you always have some sort of scene scored like that. Go to a different sample here. So here we have sustained notes, right? So if we go to sustain, they of course sustain. If we're on staccato, then we're only getting one hit, even though our actual notes, our MIDI notes here, are drawn on longer. You know, if I just hit a key here and hold it down, we're just going to get that quick hit. Okay. Same for our spiccato. Just a quick hit. And then it'll be triggered again up here. All right. Then we have tremolo. It's basically a quick back and forth with the bow there. So if I go to something with some shorter notes here, hear tremolo on that. Doesn't sound very good, but pizzicato would sound really good on this. Right? Spiccato would sound good too. So would staccato. And sustain works as, pretty well too. All right, so there is your basic, 5 different articulations that you have. And you'll also notice we have key switches for all of those. But before we get to that, let's go through our presets that we have here. So right now we have the ensemble strings. And then, of course, we have different sort of articulations here. So if I load the, say, espressivo, let's load that up here. It's just loading up. You'll see it says right here, espressivo sustain. Now, if I choose something else like staccato, no articulation available there. No articulation here, no articulation here, no articulation here. Okay? So we're limited to the sustain articulation, which is our C-1 note, which we'll get to that in a minute. But this will sound slightly different than just regular sustain. And for that, I need something with some longer notes. Hear that? So it's a little bit different. And then from there, we have more different kind of articulations that you can load up. These are pretty cool down here. Our ponticello and whatnot. So we have violins, violas, cellos, and then our basses. You can load those up individually if you want. So if I were to load up, say, violin, and we'll go with an articulation of, let's go for this trim here. Let that load up. Just like our espressivo that we loaded up, this has automatically dropped us into the tremolo articulation. If I choose something else, we don't have different articulations there. Okay. And this articulation is a little bit different than a standard tremolo. You can see the different articulations up here. And again, remember, we just have violins. So if I click down here where our basses would be, nothing. Nothing until we get up here to where violins would be. All right. So it's a little bit different than, say, a standard tremolo. So just be aware that you have a few more articulations in here in your patch menu. Okay. So let's go back to our ensemble strings. So we have everything loaded up that we can play with. So we have our basses, our violas and violins and whatnot. There we go. Loads pretty quick there. And then we'll take a look at our triggers here, our trigger notes. So let me scroll down here. And of course you can play these notes, the C-1, C#-1, and so on and so forth. You can play those, of course, on your actual MIDI controller, and those will be recorded into your DAW. Or if you're just, playing along, you can change your articulations on the fly that way. Or if you're going to program in your DAW, you can program those notes in. So let's hop in here. So right here, we're at -1. Here in Pro Tools, we can always see the note we're at right up here. So I have my pencil tool. Let's just draw in some notes here. Let's go to, here we have C-1. So we'll just draw this in. This will make sure that whatever we're playing in this area is going to be sustained. So if we want staccato, we would go to C#1. As soon as I draw that in, you can see it switched over here. Same thing for our spiccato. You can draw that trigger in here, our key switch. And then our pizzicato. And then tremolo. So there we go. Now we have our key switches drawn in there. And if I play back, you'll see them switch here in real time. Just going to hit this note, go up to sustain. Going to hit our another trigger there. Staccato, another key switch, and then our last key switch there. So of course, these notes down here don't make any noise, right? And we can scroll up here. I'll just put a note right here. As soon as we get down past 0, see 0, we don't have any more notes, right? So let's just go up here. Manually switch over there to sustain. I'm just going to drag this note all the way across all of our different key switches there. Okay, you can see it right there. Now what's going to happen whenever I play this one note? Are we going to switch articulations mid-note every time we hit a different key switch there? Well, let's see. So it changed over to staccato, but we don't have any different sound, right? That's because it's respecting our previous trigger until we have a break in this note, until we have a different note. Now, if I would, let me actually move this down a bit here. Manually put that back to sustain. Now, if instead this note changed, instead of being one long note, then we'll actually get our different articulations. And I guess I could. There we go. So now when I play back, you'll hear the notes and they will change along with our key triggers that we have down here. And here we go. There's our sustain, staccato. Okay, so that's how you can use your key switches there in your DAW or again on your physical MIDI controller. Just again, either programming them in or of course using your key switches on your MIDI controller, and you can get all of your different articulations while you're playing. So you don't have to load several different SONiVOX Orchestral Companion Strings plugins and have one that's sustain, one that's staccato, one that's pizzicato, whatnot. You can just use your key switches there. You can make a big long score, a grand cinematic score using just one implementation of your orchestral strings. That is, of course, assuming that you have something loaded, a patch loaded that has all of your different articulations. If I just loaded our pizzicato here, then of course we wouldn't have every articulation to choose from. All right, so that about wraps it up. But I guess we need to go over our learn button here because of course we can learn our different, let me change this over to clips again here. Go back here. All right, so now we have our learn button here. So we can learn these different knobs to anything we want on our actual MIDI controller. So I'll just hit this learn here. I'm going to adjust this with my mouse. And I'm going to go over to my MIDI keyboard and twist a knob. And there we go. Now that knob is programmed to our depth control. Maybe I want something to control, say, volume. Learn is on here. Let me actually move it around and I'll twist a different knob. And there we go. We have those two knobs mapped to our MIDI controller. Then, of course, we can use those in real time while we are playing. Now, if you want to forget a knob, forget CC control, right click, remove learn from this button or remove the learn from all of your different knobs. So just remove all because we don't need it right now. And I guess the next thing we should cover, I already covered the presets, but you can load a MIDI learn file. You can save SVX file, which is what they use for presets here. And you can, of course, save MIDI learn, save default MIDI learn. So if you were to come here, hit MIDI learn, move a knob, and then go over to your keyboard and move a few knobs and then program all of your different different knobs here and buttons and switches here, then we could come up here and we could save our MIDI learn file, save it wherever you want. And that way, next time you load it up, you can always come in here and you can load your MIDI learn and you can be ready to go. You don't have to go through that process all over again. All right, so that pretty much covers everything here. That's a dance mix right there. A lot of cool options in here in our orchestral companion strings. I like that the interface is just laid out. It's right there. I'm not scrolling through pages. I'm not scrolling through a bunch of stuff. So, okay, put Spiccato on there. Maybe some delay. That'd be. There we go. Delay that left a little more. Not so much feedback. Change the panning there. Get a nice bounce to that. Put a filter on that. Use our envelope. Then attack it slower. There we go. That's pretty cool. And of course you could have that fade in. There you go. Have a big riser come in there and boom, take over your dance mix there. All right. What else we got here? Turn this off. Turn that down. Let's put our peak 2 pole. That's pretty cool. All right. So just showing that to show that you can do more than just strings. You can have some really sort of modern approaches to that and get some really cool sounds out of your orchestral companion strings. So that is SONiVOX Orchestral Companion Strings in depth.